Let's work on two problems involving graphically estimating the slope of a line. So as a reminder, the slope of a straight line is the ratio between the change in the y. So if I move from point to point, what's the change in the y over what's the change in the x? So that's my change in y. This is my change in x. Then the slope, which is often represented with a variable m, is the ratio change in y over change in x. Right? So this is a really big slope. This is a small slope because over here I have a big change in y. Over here I have a small change in y. Okay, so let's think about this line here. The characteristic of lines that's so important is that they have a constant slope. So if I look at my slope here, it's the same as the slope over here, and it's the same as the slope over here. So I can take any 2 points on this line to calculate my slope. So let's use the 2 points that are provided. By definition, the slope is change in y over change in x. All right, so now I just need to be careful about where I put the points. So this y value, y2, has to be the y value for that x value, x2. And in the same way, y1 and x1 provide a point. So let's let y2 and x2 be the 2 and the 5. And the x1 and the y1 will be the -4 and the -7. Right, my change in my x's, I started at -4 and I move over to 2. So that's 2 minus a -4 or 2 plus 4. That gives me 6. All right, let's run through the algebra. 5 minus a -7 gives us a positive 12. 2 plus a 4 gives me a 6. That simplifies to 2. So we just told ourselves that the slope of this line is 2, meaning that for one movement in my x direction, I go up 2 movements in my y direction. Okay, let's go over here and compute the slope using these 2 points. Again, by definition, change in y over change in x. Okay, so my change in y will be -7/3 minus 5/3. That's this distance right there. Divided by change in x. So I go from this x value to this x value. So 7 minus a -5. Okay, when we run through the algebra, my numerator, I'm subtracting 2 fractions that already have a common denominator of 3. So they're -7 minus 5 gives you a -12. And then now that's sitting on top of 7 minus a -5. That's a 12. Okay, so I'm going to take -12 over 3. And instead of dividing it by 12, I can multiply by the reciprocal of 12. It's just an easier way to write that because now it's a little bit more obvious that the 12s cancel and I'm left with -1/3. So this tells me that for one movement in my x, I go down because it was a negative. I go down 1/3 of a movement. Or if I go over 3 movements in my x, oops, let me do it here. If I go 3 movements in my x, then I go down 1 movement. But the ratio is the change in y is -1 for every 3 changes in the x.